What is up, fellow nerds, and welcome back to the Dapper Snapper Gaming channel, and welcome back to How Do I Want to Do This? This is our series where we take a look at all playable options available to players in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, then we rank them on a scale of 1 to 10, and either build them or fix them depending on how they rank. We are back. It has been a little while since I have gotten to upload anything, but you know what? I am excited to jump back in on our series here talking about the Paladin. So I hope you guys are looking forward to us resuming this series. And I also wanted to let you know that this week we actually are going to have a bonus video coming on this upcoming weekend. So hope you guys are looking forward to that. It actually has nothing to do with Dungeons & Dragons at all, but it's still going to be really, really cool. And so I want you guys to make sure that you check that out when that goes live. But until then, we are talking about the Oath of the Ancients Paladin. And if you are excited about that, make sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe if you haven't already. As you can see, most people who watch the channel are not subscribed. So please help us to reach our goal of 5,000 by the end of this year. I think we can do it, but I need your help in order to get there. We passed 2,800 this past week, which is really exciting. So closing in on that 3,000 number, and I think we can really get there. But of course, make sure you share the video and click the bell so you're notified when new videos are uploaded. So what is an Oath of the Ancients Paladin? Of course, there are a lot of paladins that we're going to be talking about over the next few weeks, but what makes this one distinct? Well, this one actually has a bit of a druidic flavor to it, as well as looking at those of the past, similar to what a barbarian might do in some cases. So this kind of has a very interesting way that you can do the story. I tend to look at this more on the druidic side, given the spell list that we actually get for this, but you can definitely play it in many different ways, and a lot of them will work really, really well. So if you are a nature-loving type of cleric, this might be the one for you, but how good is it mechanically when we put it up against the other subclasses? Let's find out. At level 3, we get a couple of things, and this is actually the same for every single paladin. Every single paladin gets an expanded spell list known as oath spells, and they get a couple of channel divinity options to add on to the harness divine power that was introduced in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. So for this specific one, we're going to take a look at the oath spells and rank those compared to other oath lists. And so for this, we of course get several interesting spells coming mostly from the range and druid spell lists. There are a few spells that only appear on, sorcerer, warlock, wizard, that kind of thing, such as Misty Step, which is kind of a huge one. But we also get things like Ensnaring Strike from the ranger list and Moonbeam from the druid list, as well as things like Tree Stride at higher level, Ice Storm. Some of your basics when it comes to the actual druid kit. So how good is this list that you're seeing right now? I think this is actually pretty good. Number one, Misty Step. I mean, Misty Step, yes, it's level 5, so it's a little late, but who really cares, right? Misty Step is such a good spell that it really doesn't matter. The only thing is that we want to make sure that we are saving our second level slots so that we can do it rather than necessarily smiting everywhere. That's the only thing, is that this spell is so good that we actually want to use it instead of smiting, which is kind of interesting. Ensnaring Strike, it could be interesting as well for positioning and getting everybody around where they want to be. Moonbeam gives us something to do on our bonus action, which we don't necessarily inherently have something to do, at least after the initial casting. So that's pretty good. Ice Storm gives us some AoE. Tree Stride could be interesting, but of course that's not until level 17. So hopefully you have a druid that's been able to do this for a lot longer. We also get protection from energy, which kind of goes along with our 7th level feature in a way. So that kind of combos into that in certain situations. So we've got some pretty cool things in this spell list. Is it busted? No, I don't think so, but it is pretty strong, and it gives us a lot of really cool things that we normally wouldn't be anywhere near touching with a paladin. So overall, I'm going to give this spell list an 8 out of 10. There are a few things that I'm just like, kind of like Stone Skin, right? I don't really care for Stone Skin, and your druid / ranger are probably going to be your speak with animals person. It would be nice, of course, if you don't have that in your party to kind of fill that role. So that is pretty interesting there. But overall, I think that it could be a little bit better overall. but it's not bad. It's not bad at all. So I think that's a fair ranking. We also get 2 Channel Divinity options on top of our Harness Divine Power here. Again, just like every other Paladin does. And I want to talk about each of those, and they are just going to get ranked as one big feature. So number 1, we've got Turn the Faithless. Turn the Faithless is essentially just turn undead, except instead of your undeads, it is for fays and fiends. It's basically the exact same thing, except for these types of creatures, which could be interesting for sure in certain situations. This definitely will come up. And then we also get Nature's Wrath, which is a little bit more of a signature when it comes to this subclass. So as an action, we can cause vines to spring up and grab a creature that we can see. It must make a strength or dexterity saving throw of its choice, which is kind of interesting, or it is restrained. While it is restrained by the vines, it repeats the saving throw at the end of its turns, and on the success, it frees itself. So essentially, this is kind of Entangle Light, is kind of how I see this, but that's not necessarily the bad thing. The only problem with this is that the creature gets to choose whether it's a strength or dexterity saving throw, which in fairness, there's no constitution, so you're not targeting the worst saving throws out there. But strength saving throws often are somewhat difficult to get to work, and so you'll probably see a lot of those. So that is a little bit unfortunate that it's not just strength save or dex save, that the creature gets to choose. That makes it a little bit worse in my opinion, which is unfortunate. So overall, where does this land? The fact that we can restrain creatures in this way is pretty strong. It is an action, unfortunately, but it's not too bad. It is limited in its range, and it is limited on which saving throw it targets because the creature gets to choose. We also have, of course, Turn the Faithless, which gives us basically Turn the Undead, except it is with Fae and Fiends, which can be situationally pretty nice. Overall, I've got to give this a 7 out of 10. I think it's just not quite as good as some of the other options available to other paladins, and just in general, there are a lot of restrictions that I'm seeing here that unfortunately I just can't quite get over. At level 7, we get Aura of Warding, and this has to be one of the most confused Paladin features that I have found online. I've been researching all of my videos here, and I find online that people are using this in ways that really aren't what's written. And so I want to clear that up and rank it correctly. I guess that makes sense. So yeah, basically what this actually does is, of course, creates a 10-foot aura around us like all the other auras do. And when someone is within this, of course, us or friendly creatures, there is resistance to damage from spells. And of course, this will go out to 30 feet at level 18, just like every other aura. Damage from spells, not resistance to spells similar to what like gnomes have, right? This is just the damage from spells. So things like your Finger of Deaths, things like your fireballs, right? This doesn't help you with the saving throw. It doesn't help you with the AC when something is coming in. It gives you resistance to the damage on something that is a spell. Now, of course, this does not affect something like a Dragon's Breath weapon, right? That's not a spell, so this would not reduce any kind of damage on something like that. So ultimately, this kind of depends on what you are facing in your campaign. If you are facing a spellcaster a lot, or multiple spellcasters, you're going to get a little bit more out of this. If you are facing mostly just melee or ranged weapon users, then you're basically never going to use this. The other thing I want to talk about on this is that the fact that this does not help you with the saving throw. I see a lot of people online saying that this gives you resistance to spells, as in like helps you with the saving throw on something, anything like that. That's not what this does. This is only the damage. And let's be real, when it comes to spellcasters, dealing damage is usually just the first thing, or it's usually an afterthought unless you're doing a fireball, right? Usually they're hitting you with things like the hypnotic patterns, right? This doesn't help you with a hypnotic pattern. This doesn't help you with anything that doesn't deal damage. It only puts you in a status condition. It does something weird, right? Like that, right? This doesn't help you there. And so to me, I think that this isn't quite as good as what people think that it is. It's definitely not a bad feature, and it's definitely not unusable by any means. It will definitely be used a lot or little depending on your campaign, but I would imagine you'll see quite a bit of use out of this. With all of that considered, I want to give this an 8 out of 10. I think it's pretty good, right? But I do want to make sure that we know it does not give you resistance to spells, as in helps you with any kind of saving throws. So that gives us a bit of a point off. And that's really the most dangerous part of spells for the most part, right? Outside of your Finger of Deaths and your fireballs. So yeah, it doesn't help you in those fronts, but for basically any other front where it's dealing damage to you, you can really help to soak up some damage or help your friends to be able to survive some big AoE damage. At level 15, we get Undying Sentinel, and this is a very simple feature, actually. And so whenever we drop to 0 HP but are not killed outright, we can drop to 1 hit point instead. It's basically just Relentless Endurance. And of course, we can do this once per long rest. Also, we suffer none of the drawbacks of old age, and we cannot be aged magically, which is more of a ribbon feature than anything, so I'm not really going to mention that. So this basically gives us what Half-Orcs got as a racial feature. So take that as you will. It is very easy to obtain something like this by taking a specific race, but if you took any other race, then you don't have this. And so it's a very nice thing for survivability. You've already gotten resistance to spell damage, which is really, really good. And so this helps you to, once you have taken all of those hits and run out of HP, you at least get one more turn, hopefully, depending on, multi-attack and that kind of thing. So this isn't bad. This is not a bad feature. It is late to be getting something like this, but I also can't complain too much, seeing how this is just kind of how paladins are set up. So you're going to get no features until level 15. Everything else is going to be aura or spells or your channel divinity. So it's basically all you can do, right? So for this, I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10 again. I really think that this is good. It gives you some extra survivability. It could allow you to Misty Step out of there if you were to need to do that. It could let you get one more big smite in before you go down for good. It could let you lay on hands yourself if you wanted to blow a bunch of hit points in order to get yourself back up to good HP. It gives you a lot of good options, right? And so for all of those reasons, I think this is super, super helpful for us as a paladin. At level 20, we get Elder Champion, and this actually allows us to undergo a transformation to look kind of however you want, as far as like an ancient nature spirit, which can be really cool when it comes to creativity. You're probably going to look a lot like some kind of arch druid, to be honest, but you can really do whatever you want. So that's pretty cool. While we do this, of course, it takes an action to do this transformation, and it lasts for a minute. While this is going on, at the start of each of our turns, we regain 10 hit points. Whenever we cast a paladin spell that has a casting time of 1 action, we can essentially quicken that spell to a bonus action, which is kind of huge. And then enemy creatures within 10 feet of us have disadvantage on saving throws against paladin spells and channel divinity options. And of course, once we use this, we cannot do it again until we finish a long rest. So obviously this is level 20 and 99% of people are not going to ever get to this level, but we are going to talk about it. However, the ranking that we give this is really not going to be weighted nearly as highly as our levels 3 and 7 features. Even our level 15 has to be weighted slightly less than those two, just because a lot of players don't get to that level. So yeah, this is really cool. Yeah, it's good, but ultimately I can't let it sway the ranking as much because most people will never play it. But assuming you get to this, let's talk about it. So with this, of course, we are regaining 10 hit points at the start of each of our turns. That is going to be a total of 100 hit points, which is pretty great. Now, one thing that's interesting about this is that it does not say that you have to stay conscious for this to work. It doesn't say that if you go down, that this won't continue to happen. So even if you blow through your level 15 feature, your Undying Sentinel, and go down and then come back up, you technically will come back up again, at least not instantly necessarily, but at the start of your next turn, you'll regain 10 hit points. And so you're back up again, right? So that's interesting. And then, of course, the others are great because you essentially have Quicken Spell built in. So instead of casting something as an action, you can do it as a bonus action, which can be huge on certain spells. I'm thinking of things like Ice Storm. That could be really cool. The initial turn of Moonbeam could be really interesting. There's plenty of others that are on the main Paladin list, of course, as well. But that lets you cast a really good spell as your bonus action, and then extra attack with smites as your action, which can be really, really helpful, So I really like that. And whenever creatures are up in our face, which is going to be a lot because we're a paladin, they have disadvantage on saving throws against our paladin spells and our channel divinity options. The fact that it includes channel divinity options is pretty cool here, actually. So we get, of course, our Nature's Wrath, which was our kind of ensnaring thing. The fact that we get to give disadvantage on that is really good. That could very easily burn through a legendary resistance when I'm thinking about this, because that's Restrained. Restrained is pretty gnarly, right? No creature is going to want to deal with that. And the fact that there's disadvantage on this, that would lead me to probably want to blow a legendary resistance if I'm DMing for this. So that's very useful, right? I really like that. And of course, Turn the Faithless, the same thing applies here, where this may end up triggering a legendary resistance. But either way, being able to just give flat resistance to these features is really, really helpful. And it makes the option something that might actually be worth going for, where you may have not considered it before. Either way, I think this is a pretty nice capstone feature at level 20. I really don't have any complaints for it. I've got to give this a 9 out of 10. I think it's quite strong. Like I said, it's very late to be getting this. It's the latest thing that you can possibly get in the normal leveling system, but it's still very, very good, and I really, really like it. So where do we land on the Oath of the Ancients Paladin? Paladins are interesting to rank, right? Because they get so many of their features just so late, right? So it makes them hard to come up with an accurate ranking. So basically, I'm going to be focusing mostly on the levels 3 and 7 features, with a little bit of help coming from the later ones. If I'm between two numbers, those are kind of going to be helping me out. That's essentially where we're at on this. So let's run through these again really, really quickly as a summary. Our channel divinity options are okay. They're decent, but they're not the best, right? We have a pretty good oath spell list. Again, things like Misty Step for mobility and getting out of jail free can be really nice. Moonbeam is another great way to add on to our damage. We, of course, get things like Ice Storm, Plant Growth. But there are a few duds on here, unfortunately. So I'm not so crazy about it that I'm thinking that this is any better than some of the other lists, but it's decent, right? Aura of Warding can be really good depending on your campaign. It may not be the best if you're only fighting weapon users, but in a campaign where you're fighting a decent amount of spellcasters that are dealing damage with spells, which may or may not be common depending on your DM style, this could come into play. If you're just getting hit with hypnotic patterns and other things that just cause kind of status conditions or things like that, this doesn't help you. So that's something to consider for sure. And then, Undying Sentinel gives us more survivability. Elder Champion gives us survivability, as well as some really awesome help with our spells. And just giving disadvantage can be really, really helpful in burning those legendary resistances of the whatever you're fighting at this point. Angels, demons. It's level 20. You're fighting everything at this point. So I think that's really, really cool. Overall, I think this is an 8 out of 10. I think that this gets a lot of love. I think that people really like this subclass, and I do too. I think this is a good subclass. But I don't think that it's worth all the hype that I see online, and really it's because of that wording of Aura of Warding. I don't think that having resistance to simply the damage of spells is anything that's going to blow me away. If it was resistance to spells or gave disadvantage or gave me advantage or gave myself and my allies advantage on any kind of resisting spells, then this would go up to at least a 9 out of 10, if not a 10. That would be huge. But I just can't get there with how it is currently worded. So unfortunately, can't give it a perfect ranking. Can't even give it a 9, I don't think. But I think an 8 is still pretty good. It's a good subclass. So what do you think? Did I get it right? Did I get it wrong? Let me know in the comments down below. Later this week, of course, we're going to be building one of these, and so I hope you guys are looking forward to another build guide. Of course, make sure to join the channel if you want all of my printouts for all of those. Joining at the lowest tier, of course, will get you all of my build guides as well as my subclass fix guides if I need to fix one of these paladins, or anything that I've done in the past are also up there. Again, make sure you've liked the video and subscribed, and you are looking forward to all of my videos later this week and later in this series. Until next time, stay safe out there, stay healthy. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.